According to the World Health Organization, more than 264 million people are affected by depression worldwide. Now, there's a difference between the usual mood fluctuations and short-lived emotional responses due to the everyday challenges in life. According to the Health Organization, depression can lead to suicide, with close to 800,000 people dying every year due to suicide. This is Moolah Insider, where we're all about personal finance and your relationship with money. My name is Mercy Milanoe, and this week we are at the Chiromo Hospital Group to take a look on how you can take care of mental well-being, and of course, this is our discussion for today. And remember to log on to www.moolah.co.ke to read more stories and link with us on our social media pages. Now to our top stories. The Ministry of Tourism has released the Magical Kenya Tourism and Travel Health and Safety Protocols for the new normal. While launching the protocol handbook, the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife, Najib Balala, stated that with the majority of people embracing the COVID-19 vaccines worldwide, it is important to issue a comprehensive COVID-19 vaccination policy and procedures for both guests and staff at all levels of establishment operations. They also added that with the countries with the highest number of individuals that are vaccinated against COVID, with the ones receiving the highest number of tourism as well as destinations, for they are healthy and well vaccinated. The year 2019 saw a significant growth in bed night numbers from 4.48 million in 2018 to 4.95 million in 2019, representing a 10.4% growth rate. This is according to the Tourism Sector Performance Report released early in the year by the Tourism Research Institute. Now, of course, this takes us to our main story of the day. Now, from athletes, artists and celebrities, the voices of mental health have been more each day, including in the ongoing Olympics, as more people are coming out to talk about their struggles. Back home, more cases of suicide, gender-based violence are reported each day, with the World Health Organization also raising an alarm on the state of mental well-being of Kenyans. But even as we continue raising voices on our mental well-being, how affordable is it? And even how accessible is it? And what can be done to ensure that we have a mentally healthy nation? Take a look. From Kantai, Avicii, lead singer for award-winning rock band group Chester Bennington, actor Robin Williams, whom many described as one of the happiest people on earth, all had struggles with their mental health. A few months ago, Japanese tennis player Naomi Osaka was at the center of criticism and discussion after withdrawing from the French Open, with US gymnastics champion Simone Biles recently pulling out of both the team final and women's individual all-round at the Olympic Tokyo Games to focus on her mental health. Back home, there has been an increased rate of cases associated with mental health disorders such as suicide, gender-based violence, and murders being reported each day. Which begs the question, what is the state of mental health in the country?
The current state of mental health in Kenya can be defined in two fronts. So one is the private sector and then the public sector. So the private sector is doing really well. Like last week, we just opened a 120 bed capacity level 5 hostel in Lavington for mental health. It's called the Chiromo Group Hostel, which is fantastic. Then we have Oasis and we have many more that are doing really, really well, you know. When it comes to public mental health, which really is the heartbeat of it, a 2011 Kenya National Commission on Human Rights report calls it, like it's really in a dark state. So whether it's in terms of psychiatrists, personnel, to medication, to just the sheer treatment of mental health in public health hospitals is not as we should want it to be.
I think a lot needs to be done. A lot needs to be done in terms of awareness. A lot needs to be done in terms of what we can do to mitigate, because I think we are trying, but we are not yet there.
Experts say that 1 in every 4 Kenyans is suffering from a mental health disorder, with cases related to mental health increasing each day. However, there has been an increased awareness, but affordability of treatment continues to be an underlying factor.
I know many places where they charge, from 3,000 shillings to actually 8,000 shillings per session. That's now private. And honestly speaking, for Kenyans, it looks way high.
The mental health insurance in this country, both private and public health insurance, have not really embraced the mental health package within their insurance covers. So there are few members of the private sector players who are doing excellent work in terms of putting together packages for mental health, but generally it's not. Like, for example, there's a leading medical insurance provider in this country that has in its policy exclusive term that they do not cover neurodevelopmental disorders, that's ADHD, dyslexia, and all this sort of stuff. But they cover depression. So we need to change that.
According to a research by the Lancet Global Health, on average, mental health expenditure accounted for less than 2% of government budgets for health. When asked how many people pay for services, 17% of 168 responding member states said that service users paid out of pocket. Indeed, out-of-pocket payments for mental health services account for 43% of mental health expenditure in the African region and 40% in the Southeast Asia region. While a combination of bilateral, multilateral, private and philanthropic donations have contributed somewhat to filling the gap, development assistance for mental health has never been more than 1% of global development assistance for health.
We are hoping that the 5% mental health budget within the health budget can be increased, but not just increased, then we reduce the recurrent expenditure and improve more to do direct intervention.
Now, when it comes to covers, many public hospitals use NHIF. Is it possible to have that NHIF cover take care of the mental or the mental cases that are coming with people who are coming to hospitals?
According to the World Population Review, the prevalence rate for depression is 4.40%, with over 1 million cases out of the 54 million plus people. However, the ratio of psychiatrist to patient is wide, as there are not enough psychiatrists yet to cater for patients, especially in the public health facilities.
You know very few psychologists in public hospitals. For example, if the government says, in every hospital, there will be at least 3 psychologists or 3 clinical psychologists who can come and offer their services.
According to the Lancet Global Health, lost productivity as a result of the 2 most common mental disorders, anxiety and depression, cost the global economy $1 trillion each year. In total, poor mental health was estimated to cost the world economy approximately $2.5 trillion per year in poor health and reduced productivity in 2010. A cost projected to rise to $6 trillion by 2030.
The mental health burden usually affects the most productive demographic of our society, 18 to 25. That's where now we have all these issues coming, So can you imagine a scenario where people who are supposed to be innovating for us and changing the landscape of our country are battling with depression, anxiety, mood disorders, and they're battling with all these things and they cannot seek help? The Gender Equality Commission did a research in 2016 that found that we lose at least 1.3% of our GDP, about 68 billion shillings to sexual gender-based violence in terms of litigation costs, amount of money in hospitals.
Kenya recently launched the Kenya Mental Health Policy to give guidance on how to deal with mental health in the country. According to the policy, mental health services are widely underfunded, especially in developing countries. Kenya is among the 28% of WHO member states countries that do not have a separate budget for mental health.
And then now we need to go to other departments, labor, devolved units, so that ultimately, cumulatively, we are addressing mental health. Even the Ministry of Education needs to have a mental health budget in terms of schools and teachers. Let's go to the prisons. Can they have a mental health budget for the prison officers and for the prisoners? Let's go to the police force. You know very well what's happening within the police force, so that the solution to mental health is mainstreaming mental health in every part of our society.
For now, organizations continue to raise voices on the need for increased investment on affordable and accessible mental health care.
No one wakes up one day and says, I have depression. No one wakes up and says, hey, I found myself with ADHD. These are things that we sometimes carry because of how our genes. Sometimes it's because of the environment we grew up in. Sometimes it's because of, for example, you go through an accident, you have PTSD. You did not ask for it. Having a mental problem does not mean that you are mad. It means that you need to be okay. The same way you go to hospital and get medication is the same way when you are feeling like you are not okay mentally, you should go and seek help.
So now that we've known what it takes to improve the mental well-being of Kenyans, how can you invest in your mental well-being in the small ways every single day? Number one, exercise every day. Even if it's a walk or a run, exercise. Go outside. Number two, meditate. Meditation doesn't change what you're experiencing, but it completely changes how you relate to what you experience. The other thing you can do is get lost in a book. Now, of all the escape things you can do or you can deploy, books are among one of the most lucrative ways to get lost into your own thoughts, and even in a serene where you're just thinking about you and your story. Now, it may not solve everything, but at least you can be a bit distracted from what you are going through to get lost in a nice story about a situation or something, or even in a life of somebody else. The other thing that you can do to also invest in your mental health each and every single day is have hours in which you disconnect. Disconnect from people, disconnect from social media, and have your own quiet time. Well, at the same time, it's good to disconnect. Also, it's good to connect with other people as much as possible. Have a friend over, go to that party, be around people, especially when you feel you're not safe alone. The other thing is find one thing to savor every day. Every time that you want to savor something, or you want to experience something more, you become calm. And this way you can be able to just say, you know what, everything may not be going the way I want, but at least there's one thing that I can enjoy. Now it can be something as simple as having a cup of herbal tea in the evening, reading a good book, taking a walk, cooking. Some even cleaning is quite calming for them. So these are some of the things you can just do every single day to calm yourself down. Also, treat yourself in healthy ways. Now this, you can find a nice way to treat yourself by either taking yourself a cup of tea, or get yourself a nice meal, give yourself a treat, or partaking in an activity that you've always wanted to that can calm you. Now the other thing is learn to be grateful. Now everything may not be perfect, but there has to be that one thing that you are always grateful for. It may be the fact that you have a roof over your head. It may be the fact that you have family. At least every single day, be grateful for one thing. Even if it seems something as simple as getting safe from your workplace to home, or even seeing that whole day, or even having the strength to take that shower. The other thing also is learn to adopt new habits. Now, the COVID-19 isolation and even working from home has taken us away from people. So we don't have time to hide in something else. Now, there's no question about it because you're alone. And of course, isolation may not be great all the time, but also take it as an opportunity to look at your habits and also determine which ones that are worth letting go, which ones that are worth keeping, which ones that are worth adapting, which ones that are worth improving. Basically, take this time to do a self-audit of yourself. And with time, you'll be able to know what habits you can drop, what you can take, and what you can be able to improve. Well, those simple tips about investing in your mental wellness takes us to our word of the day. Now, word of the day is something very critical that policymakers, that doctors and everybody else is asking governments to do, and this is mental health policy. So what is a mental health policy? A mental health policy is a specifically written document by the government or Ministry of Health containing the goals for improving the mental health situation in a country or in an organization. The document contains the priorities and among those goals and the main directions for attaining them. It may include the following components: advocacy for mental health goals, promotion of the mental well-being, prevention of mental disorders, treatment of mental disorders, and rehabilitation to help mental ill individuals achieve their goals. Well, our word of the day now takes us on a break. Remember that you are watching Moolah Insider, and if you haven't watched our previous episodes, remember to log on to www.moolah.co.ke and link with us on our social media pages. Now, to take this conversation a little further, we are having a discussion with Gathoni Mbugo, who's a clinical psychologist at the Chiromo Hospital Group. Thank you so much, Gathoni, for joining us. First things first, what is the current state of mental health in Kenya?
Since the onset of the pandemic, we have just seen like an increase of the number of mental health issues or even the cases. The statistics, looking at the statistics, we see that for outpatients specifically, 25% and 40% of inpatients have mental health related issues. And that's actually quite a large number, comparing with access to that treatment, itself, comparing to not just facilities, but also access to psychiatrists and access to, psychologists.
Is there enough awareness concerning mental health in the country?
That is going on very well in terms of more people coming out to give their stories, in terms of more conversation taking place online. I would say yes, there is more awareness, but it's not enough, because when you still go to mashinani, people don't really have information, or even not just information, but the correct kind of information, which is more necessary. So I think it's still a journey that is progressive, and it's also still not about the awareness, but are people consuming this information and doing something, about it, because that is what will bridge the gap, between people being able to take care of themselves effectively.
What is the cost of therapy?
I have worked in a level 5 hospital where just to have a card is 50 shillings. At KNH, they have a youth center that is free. There are toll-free lines that also offer therapy. When you go to private facilities, it will range between 3,000 and 5,000. And that also depends on the level of expertise the person who is seeing you has. And then also the cost of admission absolutely differs in relation to how long are you going to be admitted, what are you being treated for, are you on medication, or not, and which particular facility are you in. But I would say generally the cost of healthcare is very high. Mental health treatment and mental health care is something that is continuous. Remember, this is a condition. And saying it's a condition, it means that this person needs to engage in treatment, managing that condition more often than not for the rest of their life, because it is a chemical imbalance. However, I would say the costs would be different if somebody starts getting care early enough. The cost also would be different if people have enough self-awareness to understand that, I went through, let's say, grief, or I went through a traumatic incident, either in childhood or in adulthood, and it's really bothering me, and I've started drinking or I've started withdrawing, that level of self-awareness. Therefore, even when you go for therapy, you're going to try and actually prevent you from crossing that line and really getting a mental illness.
How will you describe the key issues affecting Kenyans right now that is affecting their mental health?
So domestic issues, conflicts within the family setups, those are really, really real issues. And if your home environment is actually unstable, it's toxic, the chances of you suffering poor mental health are very high. The other issue is in the work environment. If your work environment is not good, it's toxic, that is also a really huge area of your life. That's like a third of your life. It is worse if your home and your work are dysfunctional. Finances, unemployment, that is something that is really, really straining the youth of today. Those are the things that are heightened or triggered by stress for now people to actually develop mental illnesses. We cannot forget relationships. These Nairobi streets are rough. Seriously, I'm saying this on a very serious note. I think we have also become a population of me. So even when people are getting into relationships, probably they've not resolved their own issues. They're just there to see what can I get out of this relationship, not what am I bringing to this relationship, what can I get out of it. And the other person what can I get out of it? So if two people who are unhealthy, are not whole, come together, it's going to be a tough kind of a situation.
What can be done to make treatment of mental health accessible and also affordable?
We need to take these conversations back to the home front, because the family is a basic unit of the community. We need to have these conversations within the family systems, with our children, with our spouses, with our house girls. Just age appropriate, of course. I mean, don't start bombarding your child with information that is too heavy. But we need to start normalizing the conversation from the family system, and also normalizing support and creating safe spaces within the family. We also need to have that level of awareness within the school programs, enforced in the school system. That is very, very important. And, you know, in our workplaces, in our churches, which hold, you know, and mosques, or wherever we go, because those are also the institutions that hold really big crowds of people at the same time. It's actually very powerful. If somebody with a lived experience comes up and said, this is what I'm going through, this is how I'm coping, this is what I'm struggling with, not just for mental illnesses, but also for other psychosocial issues.
What are some of the simple things that people can take to take care of their mental health? Just everyday tips that somebody can do to be calm and to be able to get through the day.
The most effective mode of taking care of yourself is physical exercise. And let me tell you, I think maybe 1% of people actually take that seriously. It's easier said than done, but exercise is actually the most natural way to ensure that the brain functions optimally.
Well, thank you so much, Gathoni, for speaking to us. We were speaking to Gathoni Mbugua, who is a clinical psychologist at the Chiromo Hospital Group, where we are today, and we are shooting our bulletin today. And of course, we'll be having these more discussions, not only today, but every single day, because I believe it's something that we need to talk about every single day and take care of ourselves. While you are watching Moolah Insider and our pursuits this week, Chege Kiuna began breeding dogs in 1985 as a side hustle. Today, it is a full-time job, and Kiuna Dogs is a reputable dog business. Take a look.
My name is Chege Kiuna, a retired teacher. Retired in 2007, and I breed dogs both for security and family dogs. Breeding business started in 1985 when my family was attacked by thugs at night. I felt that I would have been more prepared if I had dogs. So at that time, I acquired my first 2 dogs, a male and a female, puppies, for a total of 600 shillings. They grew, they produced puppies, and people showed interest in the puppies that I had. By the time I sold them, the prices had gone up a bit. They were going for 1,500 each, and I felt that they were a good source of extra income for me and my family. I have not bred any other dogs except German Shepherd dogs, mainly because I found out that the best dogs for security were German Shepherd dogs. When we started, we were probably producing 10 puppies. Then that number started increasing as we gradually got to know how to breed dogs, so that in the 90s and 200s, we were selling quite a good number of dogs, about 50 per year. The black German Shepherd dogs, we sell them at prices ranging between 30 and 60,000 shillings, depending on the quality of the dog. That price range is dependent on a few things. We have to keep the puppy for about 2 months before we start selling. And for each day that puppy is feeding away from the mother's food, the puppy is going to eat about 1,000 shillings a day up to about 2 or 3 weeks. There are two main categories of vaccinations. And in total, it is going to cost you close to 10,000 shillings for vaccinations alone. If the dogs are not gone by the time they are 3 months and you still sell them for 60,000 shillings, then you will be selling that puppy at a loss, because not very many people want grown-up puppies. They want them when they are young. So sometimes you have to sell them for even 10,000 shillings, which means that you have made quite a heavy loss on the dog. Our customers are mainly private individuals, but occasionally we also sell to security companies, government bodies like the police, KRA, and the wildlife services, because they know that our dogs are good for doing security work. In 1984, dog breeders were mainly white people who are exclusive. They didn't want to tell Africans what they were doing and to raise good dogs. So we had to do a lot of experimenting, and that killed very many of our dogs as we tried. But we gradually were able to overcome that. We generally didn't know about dogs' health. We had seen dogs in the village, the way they were not cared for, and they would grow up. So we lost very many puppies as they were growing up. Getting people to trust that they can buy good dogs from me. But with the time, people have come to trust that Africans can also produce good dogs. For somebody who would like to get in there, I think they would need to start preparing quite early, because it calls for an investment which I would call a bit heavy. Also, you have to decide on which breed of dog you are interested in. Each breed has its own needs. Don't get into dog breeding because you want to make money, because for the first few years you might not make any money. You must love the breed of dog that you want to keep. Because if you don't love dogs, if you don't like spending time with the dogs, then you are not going to be able to make your dogs sellable. Running a dog business, breeding business, doesn't just call for buying. There are other expenses which come in. If you don't want to spend money on the dogs, then you will not get good quality dogs.
Well, something interesting from Kuna Dogs is that actually, speaking of mental well-being, is that keeping a pet is a form of therapy. It keeps you company, and also it can teach you very nice values such as empathy and taking care of them, and they can give you good company. Something to consider, maybe. Well, that takes us to our leading indicators this week, starting off with stocks and foreign exchange. Let's take a look at the prices of groceries across selected supermarkets this week. Well, that's all we had for you this week on Moolah Insider. My name is Mercy Milanoy. And remember, if you haven't watched our previous episodes, be sure to log on to www.moolah.co.ke for more stories and link with us on our social media pages. And a big thank you to the Chiromo Hospital Group for hosting us on this insightful discussion on mental well-being. And remember, it's okay not to be okay. See you next week.